Good morning. Let's see how that started. Um, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about a professional learning project that I went through for the first half of the year and what it meant for me as a teacher. Clearly, it's all about student voice, something I've been looking at for quite a long time now. But let's work our way through the process. So, why include student voice? It was an interesting article published last year by the department called Amplify. And there's a little quote from them, and it's all about if we can give students, our young people, a classroom environment, a school community environment where they feel confident and involved and are encouraged to act on their involvement. I suppose we think Greta Thunberg, don't we, in that sense? Then we get much better outcomes from those students. They become more engaged and their participation's increased, but most importantly, their performance improves. So I was hoping to include more student voice in my classroom for that very purpose. And going back to Professor Jack Whitehead's work that I read when I was doing my PhD, and he sort of proposed this 5-point plan, and he suggested that we're doing it all the time as teachers. We do it in big groups, we do it in small groups, we do it on our own, we do it in response to new curriculum, we do it in response to a challenge of a class, and it resonates well. I found it. I've been doing this all the time, formally and informally. So I experienced a problem, and then I try to work out ways to solve that problem, act on that solution, evaluate the outcomes, and think about what's next. And so I'll sort of outline what happened here in my little project in those 5 points. So what was the problem? Well, it's Year 9 general science. It's Year 9. They're middle lessons to start with. And so they're always a little bit difficult to work with because they're going through something that's pretty important that's got nothing to do with school. But also, because we have an elective program, many of our general science kids are choosing to do general science with the hope they'll never have to do it again, any science. Others are really, really keen to explore all the sciences and see what they might like to do with their futures. And then we also get add on to that, there's different personal enculturations, there are different ability levels, there are different learning preferences from a learning style and intelligence perspective. And so they're really quite a diverse group of kids, requiring a great deal of different outcomes. And so I felt they were pretty ripe as a group to use to try and differentiate and personalise the learning experience for them. And so, I suppose you do methodology. So I did a little bit of work, a little bit of reading, of course, and I've done quite a bit of reading during my PhD and since around this area because it's an area of great passion. But went back and did some more reading, and of course Amplify offered me some up-to-date stuff to look at. And then I measured my students. Well, actually, I surveyed them at the start of the year for what they wanted to learn about. And so I used that as a launching pad to develop some work for them. And when we started the second term, I measured what they wanted from their environment, their preferred learning environment, and what they felt was their actual learning environment. I also surveyed them about their views about how you go about teaching and learning science. I was hoping to video my classes, but this didn't happen. I just didn't have time. I was a bit overloaded in that first semester, so it was quite difficult to organise. It just didn't happen. And we ran out of time for interviews with students. I was hoping to interview them, but I did survey them, so I got their post responses as well. So it was interesting data from the kids about how they viewed the classroom. So the orange line in both cases is their actual. Sorry, no, it's not. I'm lying. The orange line in the first one, learning environment survey, is their actual. So this is what they thought they were living with, which is pretty good. 3.5 to 4 out of 5 is still, a pretty high score. So they're having a reasonably good environment from a student participation purpose, sense of student-centeredness. Their preference was higher, and their preferences were basically for around 4 for most things. And then the grey line shows what happened after the intervention. So interestingly enough, that one that I was most keen about, the fourth one, the learning, where I shared control of their learning, they really still weren't that happy about that. There was a preference, but not their highest preference. And they felt that, I don't know, they reacted to it strangely. In the views about teaching and learning, I was really quite happy with that curve. The blue line is prior to the intervention, and it shows a preference for teacher-centeredness, and their least preferred was collaborating with other students. And the nice thing I find with that orange line is that it's changed, and the teacher-centeredness has been reduced. Still greater than this, that's student-centeredness, but their desire to collaborate has increased, so they see more value in collaboration. Again, one points out both lines are above 3 out of 4, so that's still pretty optimal anyway. So I'm tinkering at the edges maybe, although their behaviours themselves would suggest otherwise. So having surveyed what they wanted and having a really tricky term 2 with the kids spending 2 weeks in the city on a project, came back from that to that plan. A few other programs in the school took the classes away as well, and then of course they many of them were doing Year 10 subjects as part of their elective system and had exams, so that also interfered with my timing. So I was able to set these things up in such a way and be very flexible with time with the kids to get 3 projects from them that were about them. So the first was a personal passion project which ran the entire term. Actually set up at the end of term 1, got them on start on their projects on a topic. And then they presented their work at the end of the term, and it was intended to be an individual thing, but many of the kids worked as pairs on something that's really of great passion to them. And we had some fantastic presentations, some really, really interesting things about kids I didn't know about. One was a go-karter, a highly proficient go-karter, and one of the top ones in Australia. Another girl was involved in speedboat racing. One of the boys is a high-performance athlete, and he studied what was being done to his body by his dietitian and trainers. So some really interesting stuff came out of the kids. And then I set up 4 units in response to what they told me they wanted to learn about. One around genetics, one around just nerves and hormones. There's a lot of biology requirements. Space exploration was a really interesting one. A lot of them were really interested in the idea of space, which we don't normally bother with in Year 9 or 10, so we've done it in Year 7. So I set something up there for them, and one around energy efficient house design, and now we have a lovely set of equipment for testing and getting data about that. So I based this all on our platform style, where they'll be able to dip in, complete lessons, and prepare a project which explain what they'd learnt about the aspect they'd taken on. And I was pretty pleased with all those, actually. They worked really well. The students were then asked to give me some feedback about what they thought. And so I've got some really nice support there, actually. They felt there was a great opportunity to collaborate with their friends, because they did a lot of group work. There was an opportunity for them to work at their own pace, which was the whole idea, that they didn't have to work to any particular timing. And I was very flexible with timing. As long as I realised I had been working, I was flexible with when I got the work from them. So that worked well. A positive and quiet environment. And I have 2 very different classes, one quite noisy, one quite positive and quiet. So interesting to see where that one came from. I think maybe the quieter class. The ability to work on something of interest, which was really strong. They were doing what they wanted to do. They felt they always had something to do, and of course I was there, so when they needed me, they could come and get me and get some help. So that was really positive stuff that came out of it. It's interesting, I've called it a lack of student agency. There's a whole range of responses I got, which I've lumped together there, about things that really they saw as negatives, but were really about them not being used to be able to take agency and to share control. So again, that was that wonderful David Gillen stuff about the empty centre. You can't walk out of the centre, you've got to be still there and helping them learn to take charge and being part of the process. And maybe I gave them too much of the centre too quickly. I probably did. I threw them in the deep end. I was interested to see how they swam. Some students did remain disengaged and distracted. They were my target group. One of my target groups is a group of boys. And they did some really good work, but they were still looking for attention more than anything else. And some of the students wanted me to manage them more, which was a fair response. I was managing them differently, but I wasn't managing them to reduce their impact on others. Some kids didn't like working with style, which is essentially our textbook. But anyway. So advice for improvement for me, from the kids. Still need to find ways of working with those kids who are showing misbehaviour, who are distracting other students and getting in the way. So I need to have strategies for more intervention there, that rather than try and keep them in the room, somehow I can control them better so they're not interfering without stopping them working, because the boys I was really keen to get to work did some great work, much better than they had done in the first term. Less style. That's going to be a difficult one, because I've got all my classes set up on style, and it's what I use as their student workbook and textbook all in one. But if I can find other ways to prepare the material so kids can use other formats, I'm going to have to see what I can do for them, because there are a few kids who don't like style. Was I successful? Yeah, I was. I think it was a really successful term, and I was particularly pleased with the kids who were having difficulties really improved their performances and got more involved in their learning. There's still a lot of work to be done around student agency. The kids didn't seem to think that that was their role to share the management of their science classroom and the learning that goes on. So I've got some work to do there. Some of them wanted more direct teaching. And so, you have to be able to supply that. So I need to probably find a way, and I think I've got a little plan I'm going to put in place this term, to make sure that each group gets some direct teaching every week. So I'm touching base more often. And of course, we're looking at NYP pedagogy as the school evolves into NYP, and I'm going to find a way of making sure that I can still do this. So there's a bit of investigation there for me. And then the final thought I leave with Professor Jeff Norfield is very much a paraphrase of a conversation that I had with Jeff Norfield in about 1994 or 95. He and his team at Monash would embed themselves in a school. So he had a few schools where he had agreement for his students to stay for the whole term, for a 10-week term. And as part of that, he would actually go part-time teacher as well. And so he was testing out things that he was teaching to his education students in the classroom, and he's a science educator. And he found that the more we intervene and try to improve things for students, the more often we spread the outcomes. But it's not always the kids who you'd expect who win from those, who benefit from those actions. So I suppose that teacher toolkit being as diverse an object as possible is really important. As my mantra is access to success for all my students. And so we've got to keep finding ways to get in there and find possibilities for success for all of them. So it's just being mindful of the fact that we need to do things differently for different kids, and that drive for personalisation and differentiation. Anyway, hopefully that's of some help to those who have bothered to listen to me. Thank you very much. Did that record?